Since yesterday we mentioned the principle of quasi-wisdom concept, and now we have some idea who they are, roughly speaking, hopefully, that I would like to go further in discussing their particular setup in terms of what kind of a world, what kind of universe that we are discussing about in connection with the crazy wisdom mandala, crazy wisdom world. The interesting point is such mandala or such world, as we could call it, is not built on any form of uncertainty at all. It has very specific, very definite patterns and directions that takes place. And it is simply the expressions of our own particular state of being, so to speak, which constitutes the basic world of pain and pleasure, chaos and order, neurosis and insanity, and so forth. And that particular image is used in the sadhana according to a lot of the other traditions of the tantric pattern, particularly those of Anuttara Yoga of tantric level and Mahayoga level of tantric teachings, is having a basic background which is actually speakable, workable, communicatable. That basic ground that we usually share with each other. On such ground, the teaching can be founded. If the teaching is founded on entirely virgin territory, where there is no actually communication and connection with our ordinary everyday life situation, none whatsoever, then teaching becomes out of the question, that nobody will be able to understand it properly, and nobody will be able to practice it properly either. So the question is that because such thing as the Buddha Dharma practice exists within our own particular state of being, our own particular world, therefore it is a very powerful, it speaks our own language rather than the divine language or language of the transcendence. And in many cases, the people get very excited, in some sense, that because that such language is used as foreign language, which has nothing to do with us personally, particularly at all, our everyday life and everything is being extraordinary language, and the people trying to relate with that as if eating a new dish or wearing a new costume or whatever it may be, that kind of level, that exotic quality, that specialities which you are not used to. And at that point, such indulgence becomes completely fake. Reason why that is because it has nothing to do with our particular lifestyle, our particular state of mind, but we simply would like to have something for a change. And some people find the ordinary life is too dull, that the environment is too predictable. They decide to go to India or Japan for a change. And they get completely insulted when they get to such countries where there are such familiar landmarks as discovery of Coca-Cola bottles or ice cream cones and such things of that nature. They get completely insulted, not because they're a culturally impeccable person necessarily, but because they were looking for something other than anything else that they have experienced. So they were so shocked that their territory is invaded. And in turn they blame in the countries that they didn't expect such a situation are also Americanized, Westernized, whatever. And when you begin to realize Japanese don't always sit on their low cushions, they use tables and chairs, they eat with knives and forks. It's terrible. They're so insulted. And when they begin to realize they wear also suits and ties and ordinary clothes, other than their own robes and kimonos, whatever you have, so insulted. So that is some kind of, it's not so much a Puritanist approach to world or culture as such, although you would like to present that way because that's the only way that you can present. But at the same time, it is also personal invasion that since you are looking for ideal new world, brand new world, completely different than yours, and when they begin to realize, begin to discover that such world is not all that intact, and they begin to also communicate and relate with the larger world, global level, that the technical aspect or mechanical aspect of Westernization is always prominent, which makes it very difficult for people to relate with. And we keep on hearing all kinds of stories when somebody comes back and they're very disappointed, or sometimes when they're not all that disappointed, they got something out of it, but still they make a joke about a Coca-Cola bottle is sitting on the shrine table. I put flowers in them, and hundreds of people here made fun about His Holiness Karmapa drinking Sprite, and between he's giving blessings to people, and which is some people thought it was very cute and it's kind of collage, artistic improvisation. And some people thought it was not so good, and even His Holiness is beginning to be corrupted into such a thing, and so forth. So we have this kind of notion of wanting to change our world completely when we get into a different tradition of a spiritual discipline, which we think also we're getting into another cultural setup altogether. And we wouldn't be disappointed, we would be highly confirmed our expectations if the rest of the world, other than this particular world, walks on the ceiling instead of on the floor. It would be regarded as a fantastic thing to do, and you would like to learn that particular martial art, to learn how to sit on the ceiling and sleep on the ceiling. And there's a touch of cheap magic is involved as well at the same time. And those things are regarded as just a pure dream. In fact, those particular expectations, attitude towards such thing is known as what's called spiritual materialism. Purely that somebody has a higher level of psychic ability to communicate where your missing coin is, and all the rest of it. It's just a simple version of comic magazine brought to life. Other than that, there's nothing happening there. Reason why I'm discussing this particular point is because in the sadhana principle itself that we talk about, the whole mandala is set on the charnel ground, where the birth and death takes place, and life is taking place, and is a place to die, a place to be born, equally at the same time is a wasteland of some kind. The closest to charnel ground that in this country we could come up is hospitals, in some sense. The place where you give birth, the place where the death is performed, so forth. But in this case, much more than a hospital situation, but it's simply our basic raw and rugged situation of the ground area that we constantly puke and constantly fall down, constantly make a mess, constantly die on, constantly give a birth on, constantly eat on it. We sit on it, we sleep on it, we have nightmares on it, and we have all kinds of experience on it, that kind of basic ground that we're using all the time. That seems to be the basic ground, which is known as the charnel ground. A traditional analogy of a charnel ground is that abandoned place that nobody would like to hang out. But it's so truthful. It does not try to hide its truth, but reality. And the corpse lying all over the place, and loose arms, loose hands, and loose internal organs, and the flowing hairs all over the place, and jackals and vultures roaming around and making their own particular scheme in how to get the next best finger on that ground, which is precisely what we are doing in this country, this world. Generally, this is not particularly related to, when I say this country is not particularly related with the USA as such alone, but that's the usual world that we are living in, this world altogether. Whether it is Occidental or whether it is Oriental situation, it's exactly the same thing. There is always charnel ground of some kind that we try to catch each other's toes all the time and bite each other's tails, which is called a business or competitiveness, or which is also called a friendship, and all the rest of the words that we can use. That this is the charnel ground that we are in, and that's why we don't like it. We want to get into a higher level of something that we might be able to attach ourselves to slightly differently. But unfortunately, apparently, according to the Vajrayana teaching, that you can't do that. According to the basic Buddhism in general, that you can't do it, that everything starts from the first level of truth of suffering, origin of suffering, life, general, and dissecting one's own particular, or studying particular state of mind, and 5 skandhas and 12 nidanas, and everything that we discussed in the early part of the Buddhist teachings of the Hinna and the Mahayana level are simply trying to study the notion of Charnel Ground properly, fully. And those who are known as bodhisattvas, the brave people who can actually trot on the notion of enlightenment and dance with it, are also trotting on the Charnel Ground because they realize the world that they're trotting on, they're working with, is related with such intense neurosis, such intense chaos, such intense ugliness, unpleasantness is taking place all the time. That's where the bodhisattvas are actually inspired to work with such chaos, tied up a little bit, without particularly disrupting the general inspiring qualities of those particular untidy areas, but still work with it, which is a very interesting point, actually. So this sadhana, or the mandala of this particular sadhana, is accordingly followed by the traditional pattern. The ground of the mandala, like a construction, if you're going to build a castle, house, it is built on a battlefield, which is somewhat a medieval concept. In some sense, you could say that people fight for their land and slaughter their enemies, drive them away, which becomes a Charnel Ground. Once you capture that particular land, then you say, this is my property, I'm going to build my castle on it, my house on it. So that's the same kind of experience, that first there's need for rugged, raw, and straightforward relationship with the world properly, and also have to overcome certain sense of hesitation towards that particular problem. The interesting point about that is having dealt with the rugged, raw situations and accepted as part of your home ground to begin with, then there could be some kind of spark of sympathy, compassion begin to take place. That you are not busy, you are not in a hurry to leave such a place immediately. But you would like to face the facts and realities of that particular world. You would like to get back and try to build your home ground. So in other words, such chaos that takes place in our neurosis is the only home ground that we can build our mandala on. If we are looking for something else, that we should reject all that particular bunch, and we should find a better and higher, more loving or less aggressive or all kinds of things that if you're looking for ideal spot, we never find it. That we know usually is like shopping for your own apartment, that you never come up with the real ideal place that you want to live in. And somebody has to make the modification. Sometimes the situation does it, that you begin to accept. And it's an interesting point that our desire, our concept, is looking for luxury. But such luxury doesn't happen without dealing with rugged aspect of our life properly. That seems to be the first message, which may be very grim for you, but it is also very exciting. On the other hand, it's very exciting. That large areas, a portion of our life, is been trying to avoid, to discover or to see, experience, and now we have a chance to explore that large area exists in our beings that we're trying to avoid. We have further possibilities of discovering a good site to build a castle of enlightenment. Some people go too far by committing suicide, by saying, this particular life, it is too hopeless. Too much charnel ground. Hopefully next life will be better. But then same thing goes on next life too from that point of view. You inherit your previous charnel ground, and your charnel grounds doubled and tripled and 100 times exaggerated, of course. Once I gave a talk in the Asia House in New York City. The old ladies, the old gentlemen there were very upset because I discussed about Charnel Ground. And also I discussed about regarding art as just purely buying and selling possibilities. Iconography is purely buying and selling possibilities of further spiritual materialism. And they were very upset. Didn't like the subject at all. It hit them very deeply. The interesting point beyond that is having discovered the Charnel Ground is not all that unworkable. It is a part of our working basis, part of expression of our neurosis that we have to work with. Then we begin to find there's enormous strength and power behind it at the same time. Not necessarily trying to get away from Charnel Ground, that you want to build a Hilton Hotel in the middle of the Charnel Ground and shut your doors away from the Charnel Ground completely. And you are completely sealed off from the smell of rot and the chaos that goes on outside. You could enjoy yourself in a wall-to-wall carpet, particularly. But the building of the mandala is also, in some sense, part of that Charnel Ground principle. Somewhat. the notion of immense sanity that exists within that Charnel Ground situation, which is symbolized by a rock in the sadhana. Monumental rock, a symbol of solid and sane ground, sharp rock. Quite possibly the rock is built out of obsidian or some kind of flint stone, very sharp and accurate. Is a monument that you can build part of the Charnel Ground. Part of this particular university that we are constantly there could be a monumental rock with it, in it, middle of it. Why not? In this case, not ego-centered monument, but something very powerfully personal and fully awake aspect of that. That particular monument is called faith, devotion, trust, which symbolize that reason why that we decide to work with our Charnel Ground rather than run away from it is because there's so much devotion and faith, trust in our own sanity already, so that becomes automatically a rock. Maybe a similar kind of approach is the concept of St. Peter, idea of things built out of a rock. And the idea is the foundation of a church has to be built on some kind of solid foundation of faith, and real faith, unshakable faith. Unfortunately, it turned out to be, it just happens in Rome. Even that doesn't exist anymore. But however, that this one is not in Rome, this is everywhere, in every one of our hearts. That one of the Mahayanist analogies about the whole thing is everyone possesses Buddha in themselves. They have a perfect, beautiful, well-preserved Buddha image in everyone's heart. That doesn't necessarily mean, of course, if you dissect yourself or your heart, you find a little statue in it. But that is a symbol of faith, that you could be immaculate, perfect, as much as the Shakyamuni Buddha himself at the same time. There's that possibilities already exist in us. Rock of sanity. and faith. What does it mean by faith? Blind or real? In ordinary terms, even the concept of prayer that's used in the Christian traditions, that we talk about a prayer is expression of faith, that once you say the prayer, something will happen to you, or something actually transmitted it to somebody, somewhere or other, and it actually makes sense, and what you want happen would happen. If you're in the wrong, you'll be punished, and you should also take that as a message at the same time. But in this case, it seemed to be different. Faith is nothing to do with a prayer. From that point of praying to somebody, it's faith is a sense of dignity. And more likely, Master Eckhart talks about faith in the sense of faith. Prayer is based on a sense of wake, a sense of being present and mindful, aware of the situation. And faith is seeing things as it is, as they are, whatever is the case, precisely, directly, without any hesitation. In this case, prayer of faith, meaning because that we have already experienced our own neurosis faithfully, properly. We have no way of telling a lie that we didn't experience neurosis anymore. So that is one step towards faith. That we know how much pain is involved, how much problems there are already. So we are already well versed in our own problem, reality, the facts and figures and the truth about reality. That is a step forward towards faith. Since that is the case, and working with it also brings us some kind of realization that it is workable. After all, it's not all that bad as we thought. And in fact, it's highly possible to work with. And that brings a further level that we can actually be with ourselves, our neurosis, and we could have faith, openness. And faith is not so much connected with the promise to the extent by saying everything's going to be okay, have a faith. You're going to get $1 million tomorrow if you worry tonight. There's nothing to worry. Just have faith in it. And you might be disappointed if you go to your mailbox tomorrow. That's future-oriented faith. So faith has nothing to do with reward. When you have faith that you'll be rewarded by you had faith, therefore you'll be given your reward. In this case, faith is in this case a conviction that it is the case, actually happening this very moment, that it is taking place right now, therefore it is so. It is tonight, it's nighttime, there's no sun shining, it is winter, snow's around, we are indoor, we have electricity, and we have lights shining on us, we are giving mutual demonstration talk. Very simple. That's what kind of faith we're talking about. It's actually actual faith opposed to promised faith. which is a different kind of approach. Nothing is particularly related to the rewarding aspect of it, which is like one of those, reminds me of one of those scientific experience of training rats in a cage to program them to eat at a certain time, ask for food in a certain time. If you program them a certain way, they come back and try to tap their intelligence, their brain waves and everything. Same thing we're doing with the monkeys and the dolphins, whatever we have. So spiritual discipline is not a particular zoological practice, shall we say, from that point of view, that Buddha or the God doesn't regard human beings as a zoological interesting study program, but regard as a real situation. We have to ask Jehovah about that too. Whether he agrees with us or not. That kind of faith is very solid because it's based on experience that is happening now, rather than proof of the past or future that will come to be realistic at present level. So the idea is that that rock that we're talking about is very solid, very basic, absolutely basic. On top of the rock it sits a red triangle, which is a visionary picture. It is a symbol of feminine principle. In having faith, you also have to give a birth. The triangle represents actually symbol of cervix. That's the gate of birth. Cervix. That once you have faith, then you can give a birth. And when you're on the Charnel Ground without a faith, you're being constantly confused right and left, and you are sterile. You can't be father or mother properly, in a real sense. You are completely castrated at that point. That you just a freaky wind that blowing by the rot of the incense of the bodies and jackals and whatever you have. That you've been completely confused by the whole thing. And you are not in the position to be father or mother. But this case, in the triangle, represents a sense of a cervix, which is a tantric, very popular imagery, which means gate of birth. That now you can actually give a birth. Once you have faith in such extent, you can actually give a birth properly, freely, fantastically, that you can actually give a birth. And you can give a birth to what? Everything. What?
What is the triangle reading?
Just triangle, red triangle. Plastic. Ruby. Can you read up there the point? just to refresh what we were saying. Just start from Charnel Ground.
In the state of non-meditation, all phenomena subside in that great graveyard in which lie buried the complexities of samsara and nirvana. This is the universal ground of everything. It is the basis of freedom and also the basis of confusion. Within it, the Vajra anger, the flame of death, burns fiercely and consumes the fabric of dualistic thoughts. The black river of death, the Vajra passion, turbulent with massive waves, destroys the raft of conceptualization to the roaring sound of the immeasurable void. The great poisonous wind of the Vajra ignorance blows with all-pervading energy like an autumn storm and sweeps away all thoughts of possessiveness and self like a pile of dust. Whatever you see partakes of the nature of that wisdom which transcends past, present, and future. From here came the Buddhas of the past, here live the Buddhas of the present. This is the primeval ground from which the Buddhas of the future will come. This is the heavenly realm of the Dakinis, the secret charnel ground of the blazing mountain. But you won't find ordinary earth and rocks here, even if you look for them. All the mountains are Buddha's Sangha Chema, who is the all-pervading wisdom of equanimity and unchanging stillness. This is the realm in which the distinctions between meditation and the post-meditation experience no longer occur. In this fearless state, even if the Buddhas of the 3 times rise against you, you will remain in the indestructible Vajra nature. The water which flows here is the Buddha Mamaki, who is the lake of the mirror-like wisdom, clear and pure, as though the sky had melted. Here is the joyous river, which is the transcendent form of the 8 kinds of consciousness. It flows into the great purity which goes beyond clean and unclean. In various parts of the charnel ground can be seen the terrifying trees which are the protecting Mahakalis, Rangjung Jelmo, Dorje Sogdrupma, Tusolma, and Ekajata. In these trees, vultures, ravens, hawks, and eagles perch, hungry for meat and thirsting for blood. They represent the concept of good and evil. Until you stop clinging to this concept, the Mahakalis will continue to manifest as friendly goddesses and harmful demons. Various animals roam about, tigers, leopards, bears, jackals, and dogs, all howling and jumping up and down excitedly. These represent the different kinds of perception. Here too are the churtens of the awakened state of mind, where the great yogis live. They represent the supernormal powers which need not be sought. In the middle of this heavenly realm is a huge rock mountain, which arose from the corpse of the Rudra of ego. It is triangular in shape, and it pierces the skies. It is dignified and awe-inspiring, and radiates the blue light of Vajrasattva. On top of this mountain is the red triangle, which can accommodate all apparent phenomena and the whole of existence. This is the primeval ground where the question of samsara and nirvana does not arise. It is the beginning and the end of everything. The triangle radiates the blazing red light of inner warmth and compassion. Above the triangle is a beautiful flower, 100-petaled lotus in full bloom, exuding a delicate scent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the basic question about compassion brought out of this particular triangle is the notion of relaxed openness that can take place. constantly, properly. That when you're willing to give birth to reality, then you can't just start fighting for territoriality. And by saying, this is my baby, this is your baby, and begin to put stamps on the forehead and categorize them, which babies belong to who. But this case is a much more general, basic, more sane approach. That doesn't necessarily mean to say that we had to abandon our babies in hospitals and take someone else's baby particularly. And that's what we're taking too literally. Just in case I mention that. I respect your sanity, but nevertheless, there could be occasional literate people, too literal. Such compassion is giving, opening. Because so far what's been happening from the Charnel Ground to the rock is exploring process, constantly. Personal exploration, constantly. But up to that point, beyond that is just giving, opening, extending oneself completely to the situation, to what is available around us, and it can be exposed fantastically. Sense of openness can take place. Having faith and having gone through also a sense of dignity and a sense of that you can actually give a birth to another world, then you are ready to open up and perform your duty. And I think that's basically enough tonight, particularly. I don't want to overload with you with too many stuff, so to speak, topics. We could have a discussion if you like.
In terms of opening to perform our duty, as you said, did you mean to open and allow the enlightened energy to come through us in the action of a bodhisattva?
I'm talking about something more than pure bodhisattva.
In the tantric level?
To allow the energy of crazy wisdom come inside you.
So it's not a obligatory duty as much as a natural sort of evolutionary.
Well, it is obligatory in some sense, because you have to push yourself. You might have some hesitations about it, in a certain sense, and nothing will particularly arise so easily. And there had to be some kind of effort to be put in. That's where the faith comes in. That particular rock has to be rock, rather than it couldn't be just a cotton wool in the shape of a rock, paper mache. It has to be real rock, and some kind of real effort had to be put in. Good luck.
In terms of faith and hesitation, do you have to be able to get past hesitation before the faith happens? I mean, I sort of got that impression or something.
Well, that would be very difficult to do so.
So there's some sense of working with the hesitation as part of the faith or something?
Yeah. Otherwise, you never get anywhere.
Okay.
Hesitation is faith. You have faith in hesitation. If you have faith in something, you can work with that. And then it will going to take you. If you have faith in drinking a cup of tea, you can drink vodka in the same way. Something like that.
Rinpoche, what about the question of discipline in faith? How do they integrate? The
Faith is discipline.
intelligent faith is discipline?
Well, you can't have faith if you don't have a discipline. And discipline is trying to work with the situation that you have faithfully worked out. Then you have faith. That goes hand in hand, almost needless to say.
Does that give birth to anything? Does that process of discipline, is there any sense of birth of a situation taking place as a result of those two things coming together?
I hope so, sir.
So do I. Thank you.
We better. Or you better, whatever it is the case.
Is the Charnel Ground crazy wisdom?
It's Charnel Ground. We can't actually dress it up our Charnel Ground. It's just simply Charnel Ground.
I'm not trying especially to dress it up, but is it that
Well, shall we say, Charnel Ground has wisdom and craziness at the same time, but I wouldn't coin that word completely. Charnel Ground is crazy wisdom, particularly there's a lot of wisdom, there's a lot of craziness going there too.
Last night when you were talking about crazy wisdom, I was thinking about science and mathematics and logic, and they seemed poles apart. But then tonight, when you talked about the Coke bottle and the shrine, I thought maybe they could come together. And I wonder, is there a coming together possible of crazy wisdom and logic?
Absolutely. Crazy wisdom is very logical, very accommodating, very crazy way. Absolutely. I would say, yeah. That's good thinking, actually.
Is Munlam the Tibetan word for faith, or does it specific Munlam? Is this the Tibetan?
Munlam means good wishes. In Tibetan.
Can it also translate as prayer, which then is related to faith?
No, not quite. You can't bend the language too much. As Tepa is a word for faith, or Mupa, or Kupa for the matter.
Because, well, I had Munlam Jamso translated as prayer ocean, and I was just wondering.
It's not quite a faith, it's just a wishing well wishing. And is something connected with the idea of good wishes, best wishes, well dishes.
Thank you.
Would it be a dualistic notion to regard in the Charnel Ground something as particularly confusion and something as particularly non-confused?
Everything. Both. Grandmother's soup, as we call it in Tibet.
Then you don't particularly say that this is confused, this is non-confused.
But nonetheless, whole thing is a big soup. It's like soup that we usually brew towards the beginning of New Year's Eve. That grandmother's soup is supposed to have 9 ingredients, which is everything they could throw in. You know, sweet and sour and bones and fats and vegetables and everything put together. Too late.
Rinpoche, with the exception of a few vivid experiences like falling in the toilet, I find more of a rock-like quality to doubt than I do to experience. And I was wondering if you could talk about doubt in relationship to faith.
Well, doubt. Wait a minute. Hey, stand there.
I doubted this.
Doubt is stepping back. Faith is standing. Basically speaking, not trying to be particularly cute around here at this point. Idea for doubt is non-yielding, non-giving, basically. And doubt is much more than just the pure intellectual doubt, but it has emotional attachment as well, which is not wanting to give, not wanting to open, expand, particularly, but you feel that you're surrounded by enemy. And faith is completely opposite of that everybody's friends, including the enemy. That might make something somewhat too lovelighty, on the other hand, which is also could be problematic. But in faith, in this case, not so much a love-lighting either. That faith can achieve by having critical judgment of the situation. That's the essence of faith. That you are critical, that you're not conned particularly, but you're not particularly, on the other hand, you're not particularly put off by it, that there is some sense of workability is taking place, in the sense of really openness, you know. It's like driving in the highways, that you have to drive on the highway because the highway is built that way. You can't hold a grudge against it. The people who build the highway of each particular curve. You have to go along with it, but you still have a doubt about, you know, problems that go along with that particular road.
Thank you.
I'm curious and a little confused still about the landscape and or recipe of the Charnel Ground. Is it?
Did you say recipe?
Recipe, yes, the stew that you mentioned. I mean, is it a metaphor of samsara? Because it seemed that from what David read, that was part of it. And also, is it something that are the ingredients prefabricated and we just stumble on them, or do we create?
In some sense we created. In some sense it is basic shit.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mixture of both. But largely there's a little highlights coming up, which is sane and pure. There's also little pollutions coming up as well. That's the perfect picture of the world where they're living in. There's a lot of sanity, there's a lot of chaos at the same time. There's a huge soup.
So it's sort of an ecological balance between waste.
Ecological mess, I would say. Yeah. In some sense, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rinpoche, Monday night, you talked about devotion. And I want to know, does faith change? Does it evolve? Or is it just an attitude that should be had? I'm a little nervous.
Can you say that again, please?
I don't know.
What? I'm sure you can say it again.
Thank you. Monday night you talked about devotion and the three yanas, how it's almost a hierarchy. And in the Christian faith is, like if you're praying, then you have faith maybe that your prayer will be answered. But it seems that the Buddhist faith, if you're praying, you have faith that you're praying.
Yeah.
Well, okay, is there a change in that as you go into like Vajrayana, with faith becomes something different, maybe more powerful? That's it. Just faith in whatever's happening.
I think particularly in the Buddhist approach towards faith, in terms of help that you get out of the having faith, is that trying to help you to help yourself, definitely, rather than being helped, that you don't have to be crucified for the sake of whatever it may be, plum juice, or, any kind of colorful image. That you don't sacrifice yourself for the sake of orange juice. But you develop your own discipline, your own reality. You learn a great deal that you can help yourself completely. That's the idea, because Buddhism is not a particularly centralized philosophy of a pyramid approach. A symbol of Buddhism is a wheel. It's an eternal, circular kind of approach rather than pyramid approach as such. You see what I mean?
I believe so.
So that's the idea. Faith is to help yourself, recirculate yourself. What you put out goes around while you grow up and comes back to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck, sir. Well, friends, maybe we have to. Do you have a question, native? Please.
Rinpoche, is faith more than just making friends with yourself? Is it more comprehensive than that?
Can you say that again?
Okay. Is faith more comprehensive than just making faith?
Faith.
Okay. Is it more comprehensive than just making friends with yourself?
Much more so.
Okay. With the whole situation as well?
It's having solid ground that you have a real appreciation of things as they are. Actually, fire burns, water flows, and that kind of real experience, how things work. Yeah.
Okay. Also, I was thinking about my question last night. I was wondering, you had at one point talked about people being frightened of experiencing their emotions because they feel like they will overwhelm them. And I was wondering if the fear of complete sanity was the fear of the intensity of the sanity, and whether you felt like that would overwhelm you too. Is that?
I think that's probably maybe problematic towards faith. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
That might be problematic towards idea of faith.
Because it's the intensity of it? Or?
Because too much hanging on to that sort of feedbacks and reward. Yeah.
Okay.
Reward, feedback.
I'm not sure I understand how that ties to what I just asked. So.
Well, maybe you should ask them again.
Okay.
If you don't mind, please.
Okay. I was wondering if the reason that people are hesitant to allow themselves to be completely sane is because that situation would be extremely intense, and like with emotions, you feel like that would overwhelm you completely. One of the things I'm wondering is why do you feel you would be overwhelmed so much? If that's one of the reasons you don't want to experience the sanity, why is there that feeling of being overwhelmed?
Well, because I think in some sense, you would like to take your nest. You don't want to put it in the spot, particularly that you would like to indulge in your own particular nest. And you don't want to step out and, make it, not wear overcoat and wear just a clothes, go outside in the winter morning, which is much more challenging. And then your personalities will come through in relationship to the coldness of it.
So there's a cowardness?
Yeah, something like that.
How do you get brave?
How do you get what?
How do you become brave?
You just do it. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I think we have some left of a little announcement, if I'm right. If you don't mind, before you go. Is there something? Yeah, why don't you?
A reminder that there's Ninten tomorrow, starting at 9 o'clock and going until 6 p.m. With an hour and a half for lunch, which we're planning on serving here. For those of you who have signed up to eat that meal, hopefully hopefully that's been taken care of, and hopefully you'll be able to partake in this aspect of the seminar.
Also, I would like to announce something else, is that I've been receiving reports that pre-talk sitting practice hasn't been attended properly, and I would like to encourage you to come on the spot, 8 o'clock, if you like, and sit before the talk begins. So that provides us some kind of right state of mind. Also, there's less confusion taking place, that we can actually communicate finally. That's a very important point. And also, needless to say, I've discussed already with everybody. Tomorrow's new turn is very important, and you can do it if you haven't done it before. Whole day sitting is very powerful and important. You can also do it because it's celebrating Thanksgiving, and that's a monumental thing to do. And there's a fathers came to this country or something, blah, blah, blah. And it's a very religious festival, and we can create our own Thanksgiving, that we have begin to gain our sanity, and you are the pioneers of American Buddhists. By no means, in any case, you took part in this, and it will be very nice, and it will be good for you, because one of the problems that exist is that talks and discussion groups tend to become too theoretical, that nobody has a clear idea what we actually do. And by doing something that what we do would help what we actually are, in some sense. So that would be very good for you, and it would create a certainly much easier communication level in terms of listening to talks and relating to discussion groups and sitting practice the rest of your life. So I would hotly invite you all to take part in the intern if you'd like to do so. It would be very good, and also part of the older members of communities who are here they should actually try to encourage yourself as well as your young members of the community here also taking part as well, and we should work together. So it is a very important point to set. If you don't sit, we don't understand anything. If we don't understand anything, then we don't sit. So the whole thing began to become a haywire beyond that point, and whole message becomes just a gibberish at a certain point. So in order to make meaningful something that we can all relate to it properly, is the heart of the practice is sitting practice meditation, which is very important. And I would like to invite all of you, extend my personal invitation for all of you. And I'm proud of you. Thank you.